Hello, America. I want to talk to you about something that I think is very, very hard to wrangle. And I think we're all struggling with this. What is the right thing to do? What is the right way to handle all of the things that we're going through right now, that we're facing, from our own streets to the war in Israel with Iran? These are very difficult times. And I keep thinking of Ronald Reagan when he said there's going to come a time when if we don't act now, it was back in the 80s, that there will be a time where none of the solutions are good. Every solution will be bad in its own way. I think we're there. And there's a very specific message right now, and it is consistent from the radicals all over the world. I don't care if it's the riots in Los Angeles, the No King AstroTurf circus this last weekend, or from the Islamic clerics in places like Iran. The message is the same. Death to the West, death to America. And in the end, it all boils down to this. It's simple. Some people just want to set the world on fire and watch it burn. And these people are crazy. They don't think like you and I do. We're entering a cartoon world. And it's not just the Gotham thing. It is also with the 12 clerics in Iran who have now spread a lot of that poison into Europe. And I'll address that about halfway through the program. But I feel the world is hurtling towards the last battle. And I do mean that in a biblical sense. But I mean, that might take us 40 years. But I think the players are on the field now. Let me stay here first in Gotham. I used the image of the Joker just now from Batman for a very clear reason. Our own streets are on fire. And we are turning into a civilization that is infecting the entire Western world of vigilante go-get-em justice, where law and order ceases to exist and chaos rules the streets. And I don't mean, regular criminals. Have you noticed that the criminals that we're now seeing are almost cartoon-like? We are turning into Gotham. And tonight is the beginning of the most important choice that you'll ever make. It is this. What kind of world do you want to leave for your children? Is it Gotham? Or is it an America with sane and real justice? I think of the movie with Tom Cruise. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. In the end, the bad guys pay. But that's not happening anymore. If the final battle is indeed coming towards us, a jumpstart, we cannot go into that battle as Gotham. But the situation is worsening, and it seems like it's worsening week by week. Okay? You saw the No Kings demonstrations all over the country this past weekend. Are those better than the BLM riots or worse? I believe they're worse. Now remember, those were happening all over the country, and they were breaking into stores and burning old cities. How could it be worse? Well, just a few hours from where I am right now, an alleged radical Antifa supporter dressed in all black and carrying a rifle is suspected of firing into the No Kings rally in Salt Lake City. He killed a man who was a husband and a father of 2 young kids. Why? Well, it was an accident. The suspect was an alleged peacekeeper for the rally, which is yet another sign taken right out of the headlines from the Gotham Gazette. But as horrible as this story truly is, it wouldn't even make the Gazette's main page. It would probably be this story. The Minnesota man, alleged suspect now in the assassination of a politician and her husband, as well as an attack on another politician and his spouse. Your tip-off should have been on what kind of politician was this? Well, they were a Democrat. What kind of Democrat? One that was refusing to give in to the uber left. She spoke about her latest decision and her latest vote and cried about it and how difficult it was for her. She knew she was in trouble. So here he is, the killer, disguised in a mask and a police uniform from one of his victims' homes. How frightening and terrifying is that? Now, his motives were all over the place. His initial targets were Democratic lawmakers, but not just Democrats. The Democrats who were not leftist enough. And the reports state that he had a list of future targets that included politicians from both sides of the aisle. He allegedly had abortion clinics listed as targets, but also had a stack of flyers for the No Kings rally. Oh, and he was also a state government appointee for Governor Tim Walz. Tim Walz knew this man. Now, this dude is clearly a lunatic. He's a crazy guy in an America that is rapidly becoming crazy right along with him. We're becoming Gotham City, where you take it by any means. And nobody pays any responsibility. And then we have vigilantes on the streets that will shoot and kill people by accident. This is all becoming a giant cartoon. Notice that he didn't kill just any Democrat. He was killing those who were not left enough. Why do you think Chuck Schumer is not saying anything? Why do you think they're all just going along with it now? Because they have empowered people that are now completely out of control. They have just whipped the streets up. Now think about everything that has happened in the past few years, okay? A crazy Bernie Sanders supporter opened fire on Republicans as they practiced for the congressional baseball game, wanted to kill all of them. A man in Pennsylvania scaled the fence of the governor's mansion, set a fire, allegedly planned to beat the governor with a hammer. I mean, it goes on and on. Forget about all of the assassination attempts of the president. There was another suspect that was accused of attempting to kill Brett Kavanaugh, but he said he was there to shoot 3 Supreme Court justices. All of these are from the left. Then you have a guy who used to be a left-wing hero, Elon Musk. Now he's being attacked by the left wing rhetoric that has turned into firebombs at Tesla dealerships. Jews are being targeted and assassinated by radical leftists in our nation's capital and elsewhere. Jews are being firebombed, set on fire in places like Colorado. And while the crazed radicals tear up the streets of Los Angeles and elsewhere, what else do you have? Lawmakers like Cory Booker brush it all away, calling them peaceful. Peaceful? What kind of world are these people trying to build? As they see federal officers being attacked and cars being set on fire when they run cover and call it peaceful. Are they this stupid? Are they afraid? Or are they complicit? You can answer more than one. But the answer to me seems pretty clear. The politicians are no longer in charge. They've now lost power. And so now they are goading the citizens of Gotham City. And I'm not sure that they even last if this continues. An assassination murdered the CEO of the United Healthcare. Gotham turned him into a folk hero. What else would you do in Gotham? The political left said things like this from Senator Warren, quote, "The visceral response from people across the country who feel cheated, ripped off, and threatened by the vile practices of their insurance companies should be a warning to everyone in the healthcare system." A warning? Doesn't a senator of the United States say this is unacceptable and I don't care what his reason was? We don't gun people down in the streets? I mean, it kind of sounds like if you don't do what we say, get them. Now, I used to warn you about this and about how the media and the politicians would manipulate people and keep telling them something for so long that they would start to believe it, and then they would be empowered to do it. And it would take them down a very dark trap. I remember when the left or the Democrats first put Michael Moore in the presidential box. When was that? 2004, maybe? And I said, you cannot embrace the left. These people, they will eat you in the end. Don't do it. But nobody paid attention. Well, I think the Chuck Schumers of the world are now paying attention because I think they're afraid for their life. The people that attended the No Kings rally this weekend, they actually believe they're living under a dictator. They believe it, even though any dictator would never allow them to attend this protest to begin with. But they actually believe that, and they believe there are 99 genders. This is a mental illness. They actually believe that the world is spontaneously going to combust into flames from climate change. And we're all going to die. We're all going to die? You mean faster than we will living in Gotham? Forget the media. Forget radical pandering politicians. You know who's just walked on the scene? Bane from Batman. He's arrived. And we can't be the Anne Hathaway Catwoman character from Batman as she suddenly realized what has come after all of the chaos. Do you remember this scene? She was there, and I think she was talking to, I think it was her friend, and she said, this was somebody's home. And her friend said, it's everybody's home now. There's a storm coming. Remember? This is what you wanted, is what she said. This is exactly what is coming. See, everybody has been thinking that they know who the bad guys are. You remember in that scene right before that, she was battling with somebody who she thought was the bad guy, and she tried to steal Bruce Wayne's, fingerprints, and she was going to do something. I can't remember what she was doing, and she wanted to get her information back, and she thought she was dealing with the mastermind, and that is the Chuck Schumers of the world. Those are the politicians of the world. That wasn't the bad guy, because while she was battling him, all of a sudden Bane came in. And Bane just snapped him in half. That's the bad guy. And that bad guy is now here. These politicians have been carefully goading all of this on. And now the comic book cartoon characters are here with huge influence and huge resources. Understand that we are no longer dealing with traditional bad guys. They are building Gotham. You see it on your own street, with alliances that include communists and anarchists and radical leftists and Islamists. Everything we put on the chalkboard about 10 years ago. Now, here's why this is very disturbing. You know, America has had problems with radicals before, but we have never had the problem with radicals like we have, including the communists, and then the Islamists, and then 20 million people that are here that we don't know who they are. And then on top of that, at least 8,000 terrorists that are Islamists. And then not only a weakened Europe with the same kind of problems, but us. And then our own governments against the people. And then Middle East crisis. And then a crisis with China. And then a crisis with Russia. And then a crisis with debt and our dollar. We have never had all of these problems at once. When we have to solve these, we cannot be in this state of Gotham when the final battle commences. I'll have more on the war drums coming out of the Iran debacle later on in this program. But coming up next, who are the people that are tearing up the streets or organizing mass demonstrations like never before? Everybody will deny it on the left, but I want you to take a look at the numbers. We all thought the demonstration and riots during Trump's first term were bad, but look how many more are happening now than back in 2017. And this is going to get worse. So who's behind all of it? Asra Nomani joins me with that answer next. You know, I got a lot of heat in the last week or so because I'm supporting Israel. I don't want to go to war, and I'm not pushing for war, and I don't want anyone in America fighting Israel's battles. But you know, I guess that makes me a warmonger. And then, of course, I'm a religious zealot because I say things like, "We need blessings from the Lord." You know, one of the reasons why you should support Israel and the Jewish people, just their right to live and exist. Is because the Lord is very clear with us. In Genesis, he says, I'll bless those who bless Israel. I will curse those who curse Israel. I mean, I take him at his word. He's never seemed to be a liar to me. The other thing that I don't think we can do enough of is save his children. A recent bombshell report revealed that the abortion pill is literally 10 times more dangerous than the FDA claims. 11% of women experiencing serious adverse effects. When you go in and go for an abortion, and we save a woman from abortion and the child, we're saving 2 lives. The abortion pill now accounts for over 60% of abortions, with the average of over 1 million babies aborted annually just here. That's 66,000 women who will be harmed by the abortion pill this year. This is healthcare. We need the blessings. We need to be compassionate. We need to help these women. We need to help the babies, and not just one day and not screaming at them. Let me tell you what real healthcare looks like. Preborn network clinics have saved over 67,000 babies just last year with your help. Preborn not only provides for the physical and emotional needs of moms, but also shares hope for the soul through God's love of the gospel. You know, when a woman sees and hears her baby's heartbeat, the chance of life for that baby doubles. Now, one ultrasound is just $28. $140 helps rescue 5 babies. And any gift, any and all gifts are tax deductible. So if you want to take a stand, look for some blessings for our country, to do the right thing, to show God that we are awake, donate. Simply dial pound 250, say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 keyword baby, or visit preborn.com/Glenn. That's preborn.com/Glenn. My thesis tonight is that things have changed. We've seen bad things happen. We have seen bad people encouraged to do worse things. But the Democrats and the left, the political class, have really been in charge. And I really think they're about to lose control of everything, if they haven't already. I think there are some of them that are really starting to be frightened. Look what happened with the shootings. We're entering a time of Gotham. Joining me now is a journalist and an author. Her name is Asra Nomani. She is a great friend of the program, former Wall Street Journal reporter, former Georgetown journalism professor, among many other roles. She is also an expert on Islamic extremism, terrorism, and countering radicalization. Her current project is focused on investigating and finding the sources and malign foreign influence behind the left-wing and anti-Israel protest movements. Asra, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. You were in Philadelphia, I believe, over the weekend, right? Tell me what happened. What did you see?
Yeah, it was my dad's 92nd birthday, and it's a birthday present to him. I went and did my investigation that he encouraged me to do all these years. And there at the steps of where Rocky Balboa once ran and raised his fists up in the air in triumph, we saw a stage set up. I saw a stage. It was the stage management of this web of companies and organizations that I've now investigated and that you know all too well, Glenn. I walked up as the American Federation for Teachers president, Randi Weingarten, was raising her fists up in the air, rallying people to try to destroy President Donald Trump and his administration. It was remarkable because what I was able to witness there was the human manifestation of this industry that I've been studying now for years, that is multi-million-dollar and is now galvanized in making sure that the Trump administration is out of business, basically.
So, Ezra, I think we are. I think we've we've hit a turning point. First of all, I know that they are trying to destroy Donald Trump, but it has been their goal for a very long time to destroy the Western world as we know it and reset it into something entirely different. But I feel as though they are losing control of the absolute crazies on the ground, and we're headed for a time where it's almost like Gotham, where the real power is no longer with the corrupt politicians. The real power is with these almost cartoon-like crazy people on the streets. Would you agree with that, or is that too hyperbolic?
Well, Glenn, I saw it right there on the street. So I love my show and tell. And so I'm going to show you what I literally picked up from the street was you talk about the cartoonish, casting they have. This is one of literally the signs, "No King," and the, kind of abuse of the American flag stapled onto the sign, "Resign Trump, Noam, Vance, Johnson, all, everyone. They want them all out."
Yeah.
And then Glenn, what's so important and why I jumped at the opportunity to speak to you again is because you have been, a soothsayer in all of this, and you have understood what I've been investigating all these years about the nexus between these democratic organizations and then the really frightening organizations that are both
Yes.
Islamist sympathizers and socialist Marxist communists. Because
Hmm.
I started hearing a shout, Glenn, and I wondered what it was away from the steps there that Randy Weingarten was speaking. And I followed the shouts, and it took me just 50, 100 yards away. And there I saw the signs that I have seen since the October 7th, massacre in Israel. And they were with groups like who else but the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Because No Kings, as they called this protest, widely promoted the success that they had in almost 2,000 cities. The one element that they ignored in broadcasting their great success was this contingent that I stumbled upon, the Palestine contingent. And that
Hmm.
contingent promoted their presence at the march and at the protest. And who do they include? The Party for Socialism and Liberation, Code Pink, Council on American Islamic Relations, Democratic Socialists of America. And this was the case not only in Philadelphia, but then in New York City, in Chicago, in California, where a Council on American Islamic Relations executive director, Zara Billoo, actually got the microphone and was participating in this No Kings protest that was orchestrated by the Democratic Party and its proxies. So it is exactly what you were talking about, that they are literally yards away. And what was being chanted there, Glenn? It was long live the Intifada, globalize the Intifada, free, free Palestine, the same chant that was said by Elias Rodriguez after he murdered the two Israeli embassy staffers in Washington, D.C. last month. He had been radicalized by the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and he now caused blood to spill on the streets of DC. And this
Do
is exactly why your point is correct, because this nexus is existing. The ecosystem is very much alive. And Randy Weingarten is there side by side with the Party for Socialism and Liberation.
So they know it, but I think that they might still think they can control it. The left or the Democrats that are in power think they can control it. The Nancy Pelosi's, they think they're in charge. If they are in charge, they're barely in charge at this point. I think they're about to lose it to true, dangerous, crazy radicals.
Well,
Agree or disagree?
I agree. And unfortunately, what we are seeing is that these radicals are going to also put those politicians in their crosshairs. I
Yes.
I went to the protests that the network had put forward at the Democratic National Committee last Chicago. I spent 5 days there, Glenn, picking up
Mm.
all the literature and going shoulder to shoulder with the communists, socialists, leftists, Islamists, all marching in the streets there, storming the Chicago police. And who do they have in their crosshairs? Kamala Harris. Because ultimately, they say it themselves that they are in the empire, the American empire that they want to destroy. And for them, the Democratic Party and the Republican parties are both parts of the capitalist empire that they want to destroy. The emergence of the Democratic Socialists of America candidate in New York City should frighten everybody because his charisma and his magnetism has now eclipsed most people's expectations for what any socialist could possibly accomplish in the United States of America. But they are emboldened and they are funded. I'm so happy now that
Well funded.
the name, Neville Roy Singham is on people's lips as one of the funders for the socialist networks,
Hmm.
tycoon, a man who is doing propaganda around world over for the Chinese Communist Party. And so people are getting educated, but that doesn't mean yet that our nation is inoculated.
You said that you're starting to see the kind of I don't know if you said rhetoric, I think you said dogma, that got your friend Daniel Pearl killed. What do you mean by that?
Oh my gosh. So this is what is probably most chilling for me. 23 years ago, the journalist Daniel Pearl, if people don't know it, was murdered in Karachi, Pakistan. The men arrived with two weapons. One was a camera, and the other was simply this script that they had for Danny, and along with it, a knife. And so, what they had Danny say was that he was a spy for the CIA and that he was a Zionist, and that his father and mother and himself they're Jewish. So they used Danny's Jewish identity to justify murdering him, but they also used his Israeli identity as a grandson of Israel to justify his murder. What those men did is exactly express the rhetoric that we see on the streets today. Glenn, I stood there, I took photos, Philadelphia, Rocky Balboa statue above me. I'm in the United States of America, exercising my free speech rights as a journalist, filming these masked men, and they start turning on me. And what is it that they start yelling, Glenn? They start yelling, "Are you a Zionist?" They start yelling, "You're a spy for Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency." Those were the same accusations that were leveled against dear Danny 23 years ago in Karachi, Pakistan, justifying his brutal murder. That's the same propaganda being used against Jews and anybody who dares to support the state of Israel. And so this is not liberalism. This is fascism by all definitions of the word. And so this is the tyranny that will come to more neighborhoods and more streets unless we stop it. And, my mom, I showed her the video afterwards, Glenn. She didn't want to see it at first. And she said, Asra, the same way that they are trying to terrorize you, they are trying to terrorize America. And that is the one thing that we cannot allow to succeed. Any type of paralysis or fear in our hearts that cause us to stand down, because this is really, truly a battle, existential battle for the future of the country.
Real quick, one last question, Ezra. Does this get worse? Do we stamp this out pretty quickly? What do you see as the future for this?
I believe that more blood will spill, Glenn. Unfortunately, the response to agitation by the democratic institutions is to politicize these movements and cause them to become proxies, for their own cause. And that is dangerous for the United States. Unfortunately, this partisanship is going to lead to us not solving this problem. The Democratic Party has aligned itself with too many of these dangerous organizations in this.
It's too late.
This really futile battle to try to defeat Donald Trump with these proxies. The world over, Islamist and leftist groups will never, ever allow centrists to survive. And so they will come for anyone that ultimately stands in their way. And so this is a deal with the devil that the Democratic politicians and institutions are doing. They are causing great sacrifice to their own success in the United States. And unfortunately, these agitators are just emboldened. They are not shamed. Yeah. They are not embarrassed. They are emboldened.
No. Ezra, thank you for all of the years that you have spent looking at this and the evidence that you have found, the good journalism that you have done. And thank you for being brave enough to do it. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
All right. Next, I want to take you to the Middle East and the second part of our thesis, the final battle. So if you are a homeowner, you need to listen to this. In today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles, and equity is their target. They want your equity. And here's how it works. They just forge your signature on one single document. They use a fake notary stamp. They pay a small fee with your county. And just like that, your title has been transferred out of your name and you have no idea. Then they start taking out loans, using your equity, or selling your property. You won't know until you get the knock on the door from the sheriff, until you get a collection or a foreclosure notice. That's when most people find out, and that's when it's over. I mean, when is the last time you checked your home's title? You could already be a victim of this. If your answer is never, do something about this right now. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Use the promo code Glenn at HometitleLock.com. You get a free title history, a report, and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and fraud if it does happen. They'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. So go to HometitleLock.com and use the promo code Glenn. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Glenn. The war between Israel and Iran has probably been the most divisive event so far for President Trump's base, MAGA, conservatives, and the entire right. We're all just separating ourselves. I did a long monologue on this today on radio, and I think it's important that you listen. Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz. Tucker came after Ted because he disagrees with what's happening with Israel and the United States. And I like both Ted Cruz and I like Tucker Carlson. They're both friends of mine. Don't put me in a position where I have to choose. Don't break us apart. China, Iran, all of our enemies are salivating at the opportunity for us to kill each other and splinter. And then what happens to America? We have got to stick together. Now, people who have been staunch supporters of the president and his policies and his agenda are fighting with him now. Trump is fighting back, and it's all being done publicly. Please, I don't want the United States in this war. I am tired of endless wars. I think you are too. Israel is fully capable of handling all of this. In fact, what they've done in the last just few days is remarkable from a military perspective. I don't think anybody's ever seen anything like it. It is rewriting how wars will be fought in our future. Now, how many of us fall into this category? We're done with the wars. But guess who's also in that group? President Trump. This is who he was during his first administration. We all lauded him. Finally, a commander-in-chief that won't draw us into a war. And through this negotiation, trade if need be, the threat of overwhelming military might was on the table. But negotiation was always his primary weapon. War is the byproduct when negotiations fail between nations, put simply. But as Americans, we have seen it used in a very, very different way. We saw the intelligence community basically lie to us to justify the invasion of Iraq. We saw Obama and Clinton, the war machine there with those two, enable radicals and took control of Libya. And look at that country today. We saw Afghanistan used as the mother of all clusters for 2 decades. I don't know about you, but I don't trust the government. I don't trust anybody in the government. And I don't think you should. But are these examples what you think is happening right now? Because I can't blame you if you do. But let's take a look at just the last couple of days, because that's when this divide really caught fire. We know that negotiation with Iran has been the president's top priority for months. He set a 60-day time frame for Iran to come to the table and prove they were not pursuing a nuclear weapon. They didn't do it. We always want a president to draw a red line in the sand and then say, this no more, this and no further. Well, he did. And on day 61, Israel commenced their attack. And all the way through, he kept saying, no, Israel, don't do it. I'm negotiating. I'm giving them 60 days. The president made it very clear, and he kept his promise. He didn't make a threat. He made a promise. You will be at the table, and we're going to come up with something in the next 60 days, or I can't hold them off. But throughout all of this, with the U.S. not helping offensively, President Trump has been pushing for negotiations. We've seen this kind of thing from Trump before several times. He's a negotiator. He doesn't like war. He hates it. But all of the hope of what might be happening for people on the right began to unravel a couple of days ago. Rumors, credible ones, began to circulate that we were moving our combat forces toward the Middle East. Of course, the president said you have 60 days. The president, who was at the G7 summit at the time, unexpectedly departed early to deal with developments in Israel and Iran. He even convened a National Security Council meeting. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning upon his arrival. And Trump told reporters that he was not looking just for an end, but a real end to Iran's nuclear program. What does that mean? What is about to happen? Well, one of the more disappointing things about all of this is how everybody now is being grouped under some sort of ideological absolute. Let me give you a couple of my favorites. If you question Israel or Trump's intention in any of this, then you're an anti-Semite. If you are for some kind of intervention and you think, it might not actually be a bad thing if the Islamic regime fails, well, then you're a warmonger. But then there are the Lindsey Grahams of the world. And there are also the real anti-Semites chiming in. Is it at all possible to have a real conversation about this? Or are we all acting like we're kindergartners, just calling each other names, pulling pigtails and running? Is it possible to ask questions without getting a warmonger or an anti-Semite label? I don't think so. I believe this is so important, because I do believe these are the forces, these are the armies that will be on the ground in the final battle. And it will begin in a fashion an awful lot like what's happening right now. Now, I definitely don't want to hasten that timeline. I know some do. I don't want our men and women involved with this war at all. I'm sick and tired of endless fighting, and we can't afford anything anymore. But I want you to take a minute and just look at a few uncomfortable truths. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, a Russian dissident who spoke out on the repression of the Soviet Union, wrote this, and let me quote, "The simple step of a courageous individual is not to take part in the lie. One word of truth outweighs the world." When everyone else is sitting there nervously nodding their heads, you have to stand. You have to walk out. You don't have to be a hero. He talks about this. Everybody thinks I can't be a hero. You don't have to be a hero. You could just say, no, that's a lie. This is the truth. No, I'm not going to sit here and listen to this because it's a lie. Is it true that the Islamic regime in Iran wants the destruction of both Israel and America? They proudly declare it all of the time. Is it true that the clerics in Iran are 12er Shiites who want to, quote, hasten the return of the promised one by bathing the world in blood and chaos? I mean, not exactly the prime ideology for responsible nuclear weapon holders, but maybe that's just me. It is true that we have been at war with Iran since 1979. They've used proxies to kill our Marines in Beirut. They kidnapped Americans, and they are the primary funders of groups like Hamas. And the people of Gotham, they're ripping apart American streets. Many of them are allied with Hamas. But in the end, the Islamists will overwhelm and consume these leftist rioters. We've already seen it in places like Europe, as Islamists drive European Union nations one by one toward what can only be described as failed states. And we've all invited them in. I mean, you can say, well, I didn't. I wasn't for it. Well, we have to stop it now, because the West has invited this in, and we have to stop electing the same people over and over again. We've tolerated it. And at the same time, we've hollowed out who we are to the point to where we don't even know our own history. We don't know who we are. We don't know how to think critically anymore. We don't even know if our civilization is worth fighting for. They, the Islamists, will try to erase us from the face of the earth. You're not a warmonger if you recognize these truths. To state it again, I do not want the United States to get pulled into yet another war in the Middle East. I really have a hard time even thinking it's okay for us to drop that bunker buster bomb out of our plane. I don't think we should do it. But I also know who they are. We're in a time when there are no good answers for any question. But I also think President Trump doesn't want it either. I actually hope that the president is being who he has always been, a master negotiator. But what happens if regime change ends up happening? Will this be all over? Will the Persian people be more like Poland when they overthrew the communists? Or will it be another Iraq or Libya? Well, we're going to talk to a dissident who has firsthand knowledge of what it's like to be in a prison in Iran next. Do you wake up every morning wondering how pain is going to affect your day? Michael from Connecticut used to, but not anymore. Let me tell you his relief factor story. Michael was dealing with elbow pain, which made everything he used his hand and arm for really hard. He said, nothing I tried worked until I started taking relief factor. His elbow pain went away almost immediately. His other aches and pains went away too. And on top of that, he felt like he even had more energy. If you're living with aches and pains, see how Relief Factor, a daily drug-free supplement, can help you feel better and live better. Join the over 1 million people who have turned Relief Factor, just like Michael. Call them now. Try their 3-week quick start. It's $19.95, less than $1 a day. Don't let pain keep you from everyday living the way you want to. Visit relieffactor.com, 1-800-4RELIEF, 1-800, the number 4-RELIEF. Joining me now is Nik Kowsar. He is an award-winning Iranian American journalist, cartoonist, and environmental analyst based in Washington, D.C. In 2003, he was arrested by the regime in Iran because one of his political cartoons. He was interrogated and put on a death list. So he escaped Iran and has been in exile ever since. Nik, thank you for joining me. I want to put up a cartoon. Is this the cartoon that got you thrown out of Iran? It shows an alligator, which I think is the Ayatollah, right? And he's got his tail strangling a journalist. And what is he saying?
First of all, hi, and thanks for having me. Just a small correction. I drew this cartoon in 2000, but after years of going through interrogation, prison, and pressure, and a death threat, I left Iran in 2003. This crocodile represents Ayatollah Mesbah Yazdi, who was a very powerful cleric who ordered the deaths of many people, apparently. And he believed that there was a chief CIA operative in Tehran with a suitcase full of US dollars to bribe Iranian journalists against Islam. And so I made fun of him. He's saying that, isn't there anybody going to help me get rid of this mercenary dissident? So this is what he's saying. It's based on what he said in the public. And it has a very long story and a hurtful story as well.
So you have actually seen what this regime is like. Are you hopeful at all on what you're seeing in your country?
If you can impose democracy through bombs, you should be hopeful. But if you see what happened in Iraq, what happened in Afghanistan and other places, usually bombs don't bring democracy. They may bring an imposed king, imposed puppet, but at the end of the day, I'm not that hopeful.
That's too bad. Because I know the people of Iran, at least I don't know what the population balance is on this, but I see these dissidents, I see these brave people on the streets that we haven't seen in Iraq, we haven't seen in Afghanistan, we didn't see in Libya. These groups of people that are standing up and they don't want to live this way, and they're willing to be beaten in the streets and even, hung or killed by the regime, and they've been begging the West to do something. You don't think they have enough clout to hold things together to be able to bring, peace back to Iran?
Look, the thing is, they want a united opposition to assist them and be their voice or voices in the modern world. But we don't have a united opposition. We have different islands as opposition members or opposition leaders. And all these people want something for themselves, and they don't put their country first. That's the most important thing. We need to put our country first. Of course, look, I'm an American and I'm devoted to what I have over here, but also as somebody who has lived in Iran and has got a part of his body from Iran. I believe that we can learn from the Constitution over here. We can learn from the Federalist Papers. We can learn from those leaders who created such a nation. Through time, some things had to be corrected, but the basis was, I think, correct. What they did was phenomenal. We have to learn, and we have to put our differences aside to fight for democracy, for a sustainable future.
So how do we do that?
First of all, we have to. We're not supposed to be selfish. We have to be selfless. That's one thing. Unfortunately, many Iranian leaders and politicians are very selfish and want everything for their own interests, for their families. This has to go. It doesn't help. It hasn't helped for 45 years. The monarchists have not been able to do anything in the last 40 something years, and now they're clinging to Mr. Netanyahu or anyone that gives them power. But they want to be imposed to the people, not to be elected by the people. That's the problem. The other thing is that many people inside Iran do not trust the opposition members. So we have to create a body that is trusted, that will tell people that we are fighting for you. We are doing something based on the integrity of and public service. We want to serve you. The problem is the Iranian politicians mostly want allegiance to them, not to the country. And that is the problem that we have in our community.
You know, I know you didn't mean it this way, but it kind of sounds like the problem we have really in every country in the world right now. The politicians are so disconnected from their principles and from the people, or just it's just happening everywhere, just everywhere. What is the one thing? What is the one thing? I think we have a minute. What is the one thing you hope we do or Israel does?
Listen to the smart people who care for both Iran, Israel, and the U.S. Because there are people who are enemies of either this country or the other country, but we have lots of people that love the US, love Israel, and love Iran all together. But they want a united, sustainable, democratic Iran that can be part of the international community, that can help through the years forward and bring peace. We have lots of peaceful people. And I bet many people in Netanyahu's office know them. Many people at Vice President Trump's office know them. Those people have to have a say and be the real representatives of the Iranian people in Washington and Jerusalem.
Nik, I pray for you, your country, and quite honestly, all of us. I would hope that we could find a way for a rebirth of the beauty of what Iran has been in the past and the history of Persia. Nik, thank you very much. God bless you. And from the Standing Rock Ranch in the Mountain West, thank you so much for watching. Good night, America.